The Thompson house in suburban Denver sat on a quiet cul-de-sac where every lawn was perfectly manicured and every driveway showcased cars that spoke of middle-class success. From the outside, the two-story colonial with its white picket fence and blooming cherry tree looked like the American dream incarnate. But inside, 17-year-old Maya Thompson knew better than anyone that appearances could be deceiving. She stood at her bedroom window on this crisp March morning, watching her sister Sophia load designer luggage into the silver Honda Civic that had been Maya's 16th birthday gift at least. It was supposed to be the car that Maya had dreamed about, saved money for by working weekends at the local coffee shop, and had even picked out the exact color for, now belonged to her younger sister. It just makes more sense for Sophia to have it. Their mother, Linda Thompson, had explained 6 months ago when Sophia turned 16. She has so many activities after school dance, student council, debate team. You can take the bus, Maya. It builds character. Maya pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching as Sophia effortlessly tossed her blonde hair over her shoulder while laughing with their father, Robert, who was helping her load what looked like enough clothes for a month-long trip. In reality, Sophia was just going to a 3-day Model United Nations conference in Colorado Springs. But in the Thompson household, everything Sophia did was treated like a grand adventure worthy of celebration. Maya, come down here. Linda's voice carried up the stairs with that particular tone that meant Maya was about to be assigned some task that would somehow benefit Sophia. With a heavy sigh, Maya pulled on her worn Converse sneakers, a stark contrast to the designer boots Sophia had unwrapped last Christmas, and made her way downstairs. The hardwood floors gleamed under the morning light streaming through the bay windows, illuminating family photos that lined the hallway. Maya noticed, not for the first time, how the more recent photos featured fewer images of her and more of Sophia's achievements. Sophia with her debate team trophy, Sophia at her Sweet 16 party, Sophia being crowned homecoming princess. In the kitchen, Linda was bustling around, packing what looked like a gourmet lunch for Sophia's trip. The granite countertops were covered with organic snacks, bottled water, and homemade sandwiches cut into perfect triangle. There you are, Linda said without looking up. I need you to give Sophia your room for the weekend. Maya froze in the doorway. What? When she gets back from Munn, she's having that sleepover with the girls from student council. You know how small her room is. They'll never all fit comfortably. Your room is bigger and has that lovely window seat, Maya's room. A room she had finally been allowed to paint last year after begging for months. The room where she'd hung fairy lights and arranged her books and created the only space in the house that felt truly hers. Where am I supposed to sleep? The guest room, of course. Linda waved dismissively, as if this was the most reasonable request in the world. It's only for one weekend, Maya. Don't be dramatic. But Mom, Maya, Robert's voice boomed from the front door. Come help your sister with her bags. Maya bit back the words she wanted to say and trudged outside. Sophia was checking her reflection in the car's side mirror, adjusting her carefully curled hair and reapplying lip gloss. Even at 16, she had mastered the art of looking effortlessly perfect, a skill that seemed to come as naturally to her as breathing. Finally, Sophia said without looking at Maya, can you grab that garment bag from the porch? And be careful, my dress for the formal dinner is in there. Maya retrieved the bag, noting how it probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. As she handed it to Sophia, their fingers briefly touched, and Maya caught a whiff of the expensive perfume their parents had bought. Sophia for her birthday, the same perfume Maya had mentioned wanting weeks earlier, only to be told it was too mature for her. Thanks, sis, Sophia said with a smile that was picture perfect, but somehow never reached her eyes when she looked at Maya. Oh, and Mom told me about the room thing. Thanks for being such a good sport about it. I promise my friends and I won't mess anything up. Robert appeared beside them, his arm automatically going around Sophia's shoulders. My star diplomat, he said proudly. I still can't believe my little girl is representing Colorado at the state level. It's really not that big a deal, Dad, Sophia said with false modesty. but Maya could see how she practically glowed under their father's praise. Not a big deal? Sweetheart, you're 17 years old, and you're already showing the kind of leadership skills that'll take you straight to the Ivy League. Speaking of which, have you given any more thought to which colleges you want to visit this summer? Maya stood there, invisible as always, listening to them discuss Sophia's bright future. College visits, leadership camps, networking opportunities, all things that cost money the family somehow always found when it came to Sophia's dreams. Last year, when Maya had asked about attending a summer writing program at the local university, she'd been told it was too expensive and not practical. But Sophia's debate camp that cost twice as much, that was an investment in her future. I should probably get going, Sophia said, checking her phone. The bus leaves at 9, and Mrs. Patterson says we should be there early to get good seats. Of course, sweetheart. Linda appeared with a cooler bag and what looked like a care package worthy of a college student. I packed all your favorites, plus those protein bars you like, and enough bottled water for the entire trip. You're the best, Mom. Sophia hugged Linda, then turned to hug Robert. I'll call you when we get to the hotel. Drive safely, Robert sighed, pressing the car keys into Sophia's palm. And remember, I know, I'm representing our family and our school. I won't let you down. You never do, sweetheart. That's why you're our golden girl. Maya felt something twist in her chest at those words. Golden girl? It was a nickname their parents had used for Sophia since she was little, and it had never bothered Maya before, or at least she'd told herself it didn't. But standing there watching this goodbye scene, she realized how much it stung to be the daughter who was never called anything special at all. Sophia climbed into the Maya's Honda and rolled down the window. Bye, Maya. Thanks again for letting me use your room. You're the best big sister ever. The words sounded genuine enough, but Maya caught the slight emphasis on big sister, as if Sophia was reminding her that despite being older, Maya was somehow still the one making sacrifices. As the car pulled out of the driveway, Robert and Linda waved enthusiastically, their faces beaming with pride. Maya waved too, but she felt hollow inside, like she was just going through the motions of being part of this family tableau. Isn't she wonderful? Linda sighed happily as the car disappeared around the corner. I just know she's going to do amazing things. Absolutely, Robert agreed. We're so lucky to have a daughter like her. The words hung in the air, and Maya waited for someone to mention her, to acknowledge that they had two daughters, not just one. But the silence stretched on, and eventually, her parents wandered back into the house, already moving on to their next conversation about work and weekend plans. Maya stood alone in the driveway, surrounded by the evidence of Sophia's departure tire, marks on the concrete, a forgotten hair tie on the ground, the lingering scent of expensive perfume in the air. The rest of the morning passed in typical Thompson family fashion, which meant Maya faded into the background while her parents discussed Sophia's schedule as if she were a celebrity whose every move needed to be documented and celebrated. She has that interview with the college counselor on Monday, Linda was saying as she reorganized the kitchen cabinets, a nervous habit she developed whenever Sophia was away. And then the SAT prep course starts on Wednesday. Have we heard back from that summer internship program at the state capitol? Robert asked, not looking up from his laptop, where he was probably researching something else to add to Sophia's already impressive resume. Not yet, but I'm sure she'll get it. How could they not want her? Maya sat at the kitchen table, supposedly doing homework, but actually listening to this conversation that excluded her so completely, she might as well have been invisible. She thought about mentioning that she'd been selected for the school newspaper's editorial board, a position only 3 juniors had ever achieved, but she knew the moment would pass unnoticed, just like all her other achievements. Maya, sweetie, Linda said suddenly, as if just remembering she had another daughter, would you mind running to the grocery store? I want to pick up some things for when Sophia gets back. Maya looked up from her chemistry homework. I don't have a way to get there. Oh, right, the car. Linda frowned as if this was an unexpected complication. Well, you could bike there. It's only a couple of miles. and the exercise would be good for you. Robert finally looked up from his laptop. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Maya could use more physical activity. Sophia's always so active with dance and all her sports. There, it was again the comparison. Maya wasn't athletic like Sophia, wasn't involved in a dozen activities like Sophia, wasn't perfect like Sophia. The unspoken message was clear. Maya needed to try harder to be more like her sister. Fine, Maya said, closing her textbook with more force than necessary. What do you need? Linda handed her a list that was surprisingly long for someone who had supposedly just thought of this errand. And Maya? While you're out, could you stop by the drugstore and pick up that special shampoo Sophia likes? She's almost out, and you know how particular she is about her hair routine. Maya looked at the list, calculating the weight of everything she'd have to carry home on her bike. The special shampoo alone cost $40 money that could have bought Maya 3 bottles of the drugstore brand she used. But she nodded anyway, because saying anything would just lead to another lecture about being more supportive of her sister. As she gathered her jacket and helmet, Maya caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror, where Sophia was all golden highlights and perfect features. Maya was brown hair that refused to hold a curl, hazel eyes that couldn't decide if they wanted to be green or brown, and a face that was pretty enough but would never stop traffic. She looked like a faded copy of Sophia, as if all the vibrant colors had been used up on the first daughter, leaving only muted tones for the second. I'll be back in a couple of hours, Maya called out. Thank you, sweetheart. Linda's voice carried from the kitchen, warm and appreciative in the way it only seemed to be when Maya was doing something useful. The bike ride to the shopping center gave Maya time to think, which wasn't always a good thing. The March air was crisp against her face, and the exercise helped work off some of the frustration that had been building all morning. She pedaled past the neat suburban houses, each one looking remarkably similar to her own, and wondered if, behind those perfect facades, were other families with golden children and forgotten daughters at the grocery store. Maya worked her way through Linda's list efficiently. She'd become an expert at shopping over the years, partly because she often ended up running errands while Sophia was at her various activities, and partly because she'd learned that being useful was the best way to earn positive attention in the Thompson household. As she waited in the checkout line, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Chloe. Want to come over tonight? Mom's making her famous lasagna, and Dad rented some cheesy rom-com. The invitation made Maya smile for the first time all day. The Garcia's house was everything the Thompson house wasn't: loud, chaotic, warm, and filled with the kind of easy affection that didn't have to be earned through achievements or perfect behavior. Chloe's parents treated Maya like another daughter, not a houseguest who had to prove her worth. Maya typed back quickly. Can't tonight. Have to babysit the house while Sophia's gone. Maybe tomorrow? You don't babysit your own house, weirdo, Chloe responded. But okay. Want to talk later? Maya appreciated that Chloe never pushed when Maya had to turn down invitations. Somehow, her best friend understood that the Thompson family dynamics were complicated without Maya having to explain all the details. At the drugstore, Maya stood in the hair care aisle, staring at the ridiculously expensive shampoo Sophia insisted was the only thing that kept her hair looking perfect. $40. Maya did quick mental math. There was almost a full shift at the coffee shop where she worked weekends for shampoo. As she reached for the bottle, she caught sight of her own reflection in the store's security mirror. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No special products or professional styling, just clean and practical. She wondered what she would look like if she had $40 shampoo and professional highlights and all the other beauty treatments Sophia took for granted. But even as the thought crossed her mind, Maya pushed it away. She had learned long ago that wishing to be more like Sophia was a waste of energy. They were different people, wanted different things, had different strengths. The problem wasn't that Maya wasn't enough like Sophia. The problem was that her parents couldn't see past their golden child to appreciate the daughter. They already had by the time Maya made it home, loaded down with grocery bags and balancing Sophia's expensive shampoo in her backpack, The afternoon was waning. The house felt different when Sophia wasn't there, quieter, but somehow less vibrant, as if some essential energy had been drained from the rooms. Linda was in Sophia's room when Maya returned, straightening pillows and dusting surfaces that were already spotless. "Oh, good, you're back," Linda said without looking up. "Did you remember the shampoo?" "Got it." Maya set the bottle on Sophia's pristine white dresser, noting how different this room was from her own. Where Maya's room was cozy and lived in, filled with books and art supplies, and the comfortable clutter of a teenager's life, Sophia's room looked like something from a magazine, all coordinated colors and perfect organization. Wonderful. Now, about this weekend, I know it's an inconvenience to move rooms, but Sophia's friends are all from such nice families, and I want them to be comfortable here. Maya nodded, though privately she wondered if any of Sophia's friends had ever been asked to give up their bedrooms for a sibling's convenience. "I've already moved your things to the guest room," Linda continued. "Just for the weekend, of course. And I made sure to put fresh flowers in here for the girls." Maya looked around Sophia's room with new eyes, noticing the small touches there. Mother had added fresh tulips on the knitstand, new throw pillows on the bed, even a plate of expensive chocolates on the desk. No one had ever prepared a room this carefully for Maya's friends. "Mom," Maya said carefully, "what if I wanted to have friends over sometime?" Linda paused in her dusting. "Of course you can have friends over, sweetheart. You know that. I mean, like Sophia, a whole sleepover party." "Well," Linda's smile became a little strained. "Maybe when you're a little older and more responsible. Sophia has earned these privileges, Maya. She's shown us she can handle the responsibility." The implication stung. Maya was 17 years old, a junior in high school with good grades, and a part-time job. She'd never been in trouble, never missed curfew, never given her parents any reason to doubt her responsibility. But somehow, she was still being treated like she needed to prove herself worthy of the same trust Sophia received automatically. "I should start on dinner," Linda said, heading toward the door. "Your father will be home soon, and I want to call Sophia when she gets to the hotel." Left alone in Sophia's perfect room, Maya sat on the edge of the bed and looked around at the life her sister had built. Awards and certificates covered one wall: debate team captain, honor roll, student government, volunteer appreciation awards. Another wall held photos from various school events, all featuring Sophia, looking radiant and confident. Maya thought about her own room, which would soon be invaded by Sophia's friends. Her artwork would be covered up, her books moved aside, her personal space transformed into a party venue for people who barely acknowledged her existence at school. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her photos, looking for images of her own achievements. There weren't many. A photo of her first published article in the school newspaper, a picture from when she'd won second place in the district writing contest, a snapshot of her and Chloe at the coffee shop where Maya had been promoted to shift supervisor. Small victories, maybe, but they were hers. And unlike Sophia's achievements, Maya had earned them without any help from her parents, without special tutoring or expensive programs or networking connections. She'd done it all on her own, with determination and hard work, and the kind of quiet strength that never got celebrated in the Thompson household. As Maya sat there surrounded by evidence of Sophia's golden life, she felt something shift inside her. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for her parents to notice her. Maybe it was time to start building something so big, so undeniably successful, that even they would have to acknowledge it. Maybe it was time for the forgotten daughter to stop being forgotten. That evening, Maya sat in the guest room space that was comfortable enough, but felt temporary and impersonal, like a hotel room. She'd moved her homework and a few essential items from her own room, but most of her belongings remained where Sophia's friends would soon be laughing and taking selfies and treating Maya's personal space like a backdrop for their weekend fun. From downstairs, she could hear her parents on the phone with Sophia, their voices animated and full of interest as they asked about every detail of her trip. Maya had tried calling her own friends earlier, but Chloe was at dinner with her family, and her other close friend Jake was working at his part-time job at the movie theater. So Maya sat alone, working on an essay for her AP English class when her phone buzzed with a notification from the school newspaper's group chat. The editor-in-chief, a senior named Marcus, had sent a message about an upcoming opportunity. Big news, team! The Denver Post is offering a summer internship for high school journalists. Paid position, great experience, looks amazing on college. Applications. Application deadline is in 2 weeks. Who's interested? Maya's heart jumped. A real journalism internship at a major newspaper? This was exactly the kind of opportunity she'd been dreaming about. She quickly typed back that she was interested and asked for more details. Marcus responded within minutes with a link to the application. As Maya read through the requirements, her excitement grew. They wanted writing samples, letters of recommendation, and an essay about why journalism mattered in today's world. These were things Maya could provide. She had a portfolio of articles from the school paper, teachers who respected her work, and plenty of passion for storytelling. For the first time all day, Maya felt a spark of genuine excitement. This was her chance to do something meaningful, something that was entirely her own achievement. She wouldn't need her parents' connections or financial support, just her own talent and determination. As she started drafting her application essay, Maya heard her parents' laughter drifting up from downstairs, probably in response to something charming Sophia had said. But for once, their inattention didn't sting. She was too focused on her own future to worry about being overlooked. Maybe being the forgotten daughter wasn't a disadvantage after all. Maybe it meant she had the freedom to become whoever she wanted to be, without the pressure of living up to anyone else's expectations. Maybe it was time to stop being golden and start being something even better herself. The essay flowed from her fingers as Maya wrote about the power of stories to change minds and illuminate truth, about the responsibility journalists had to give voice to the voiceless, about her own dreams of someday telling stories that mattered. And as she wrote, surrounded by the quiet of the guest room, with only her own ambition for company, Maya began to imagine a future where she wouldn't need anyone's permission to be extraordinary. 3 weeks later, Maya sat in her AP English classroom, her hands shaking slightly as she held the printed email she'd received that morning. The words seemed to blur together, but she'd already read them so many times she had them memorized. Congratulations, Maya Thompson. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for the Denver Post Summer Journalism Internship Program. She'd done it. After 2 weeks of crafting the perfect application, writing and rewriting her essays, and nervously waiting for responses from the teachers she'd asked for recommendations, Maya had actually been chosen. Out of hundreds of applicants across Colorado, only 12 high school students had been selected, and she was one of them. Miss Thompson, would you like to share what's got your attention? Mrs. Henderson's voice cut through Maya's excited thoughts. Sorry, Mrs. Henderson. Just ... good news. Maya quickly folded the email and tucked it into her backpack. She wanted to shout about her achievement from the rooftops, but first, she wanted to tell her family that the rest of the school day crawled by at an agonizing pace. Maya found herself checking her phone constantly, counting down the hours until she could get home and share her news. She'd even practiced what she would say, how she'd casually mention over dinner that she'd gotten the internship, how her parents' faces would light up with pride and surprise. During lunch, she texted Chloe the news, and her best friend responded with a string of celebratory emojis. And oh my God, Maya, this is huge. Your parents are going to flip. Maya hoped Chloe was right. The Thompson house was buzzing with activity when Maya arrived home that afternoon. She could hear voices and laughter coming from the living room, and for a moment, her heart sank. Sophia was supposed to be at debate practice until 6. Maya had been counting on having a quiet moment with her parents to share her news. But as she walked through the front door, she realized the voices belonged to Sophia and several of her friends. Apparently, practice had been canceled, and Sophia had decided to bring her entire student council committee home to work on their upcoming spring formal planning. Maya, Sophia called out cheerfully from the living room where she was surrounded by perfectly dressed teenagers with laptops and color-coordinated planning folders. Moms making snacks for everyone. Could you grab us some drinks from the kitchen? Maya paused in the doorway, her good news suddenly feeling less urgent. The living room had been transformed into what looked like a professional event planning headquarters, with fabric samples and flower catalogs spread across every surface. Her parents' expensive glass coffee table was covered with papers and laptops, and Sophia sat in the center of it all, like a queen holding court. Actually, I wanted to. Thanks, you're the best. Sophia interrupted, already turning back to her friends. Okay, so I think we should go with the silver and blue theme. But what do you guys think about adding some gold accents? Maya stood there for a moment, holding her backpack with the internship letter inside, feeling invisible once again. She could announce her news right now, in front of all these people, but something held her back. This was Sophia's moment, Sophia's audience, Sophia's stage. Maya's achievement would just be an awkward interruption dot in the kitchen. Linda was arranging artisanal cookies on a silver platter, the kind she only brought out for special occasions, or when Sophia's friends were over. Oh, Maya, perfect timing. Linda said without looking up. Could you help me carry these out? And there's a pitcher of fresh lemonade in the fridge. The girls are working so hard on the spring formal. Did you know Sophia was chosen to chair the decoration committee? It's such an honor for a junior. Maya felt the excitement about her internship deflate slightly. Of course, Sophia had been chosen for another leadership position. Of course, that was the big news of the day. Mom, I actually have something to tell. You? In a minute, sweetheart. Let's get these refreshments out to the girls first. They've been working for hours. Maya bit back her frustration and helped carry the snacks to the living room, where Sophia's friends thanked her with the kind of polite smiles that made it clear they saw her as helpful background support rather than an actual person. You guys, Sophia is so lucky to have such a helpful sister. One of the girls, Ashley or Brittany, Maya could never tell them apart, said with saccharine sweetness. I know, right? Sophia beamed. Maya's always there when I need her. The words should have felt like praise, but instead, they made Maya feel like a piece of furniture, useful, reliable, and easily overlooked when not needed. As Maya headed back to the kitchen, she overheard Ashley or Brittany say, your sister. Seems nice, but she's so quiet, isn't she? Nothing like you. Oh, Maya marres to her own drum, Sophia replied with a laugh that sounded fond, but somehow dismissive. She's more of the bookish type, not really into all of this social stuff. Maya froze in the hallway. Bookish type. As if her love of reading and writing was something quaint and limiting, rather than a passion that had just earned her a competitive internship. She made it to the kitchen before the tears started. Hot and angry and frustrated, Maya gripped the edge of the granite countertop, taking deep breaths and trying to compose herself. She was being ridiculous. Sophia hadn't meant anything cruel by those words. It was hard being defined by what you weren't instead of what you were. Maya? Linda appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face creased with concern. Are you all right, honey? I'm fine, Maya said quickly, wiping her eyes. Just tired? Well, why don't you go upstairs and rest? The girls and I have everything under control down here. Of course they did. Maya nodded and headed toward the stairs, her internship letter still burning unshared in her backpack. Maya's room felt like a refuge after the chaos downstairs. She pulled out the acceptance letter and read it again, trying to recapture the excitement she'd felt that morning. This was a big deal, a really big deal. The Denver Post internship was highly competitive and would give her real experience in professional journalism. It was the kind of opportunity that could change her future. She decided to wait until dinner to share the news. By then, Sophia's friends would be gone, and her parents would be able to focus on what Maya was telling them. She spent the rest of the afternoon researching the Denver Post, learning about their recent Pulitzer Prize-winning investigations and the reporters she might get to work with. At 6 o'clock, Maya heard car doors slamming and engines starting. As Sophia's committee meeting finally broke up, she waited another 20 minutes, then headed downstairs, her acceptance letter carefully folded in her pocket. The dining room was set for dinner, one of Linda's attempts to maintain family traditions. despite their increasingly busy schedules. Robert was already seated, scrolling through emails on his phone, while Linda brought serving dishes from the kitchen. "There's my other daughter," Robert said warmly, as Maya took her usual seat. "How was school today?" "Actually, Dad, I have some really exciting news." "Before we start," Linda interrupted, setting down a casserole dish, "Sophia, tell your father about the spring formal committee. I'm so proud of how the other students look up to you." Sophia launched into an animated description of the decorating plans, the theme selection process, and the amazing responsibility she'd been given. Robert nodded approvingly, asking follow-up questions and praising Sophia's leadership skills. Maya sat quietly, waiting for a natural break in the conversation. But somehow, Sophia's spring formal story segued into a discussion about her upcoming college preparation timeline, which led to a conversation about summer enrichment programs, which somehow evolved into planning Sophia's senior year schedule. 45 minutes into dinner, Maya still hadn't found an opening to share her news. "Maya, you're quiet tonight," Linda observed, finally turning her attention to her older daughter. "Everything okay?" "I've been trying to tell you guys something," Maya sighed, pulling the letter from her pocket. "I got some really good news today." "What kind of news?" Robert asked, though his attention seemed divided as he glanced at his buzzing phone. "I applied for a journalism internship at the Denver Post, and oh, that's nice, honey," Linda said, but she was already turning back to Sophia. "Sophia, did you remember to RSVP for the college fair next weekend?" Maya felt her heart sink. "Mom, I got the internship." That's great," Linda replied absently. "Sophia, your father and I were thinking we should visit CU Boulder again before you start senior year applications." "Actually," Maya said, her voice getting louder, "this is a pretty big deal. They only chose 12 students from the entire state. This time, she got their attention." Robert looked up from his phone, and Linda turned toward her with polite interest. "That does sound nice, sweetheart," Linda said with the tone she might use to praise a child's finger painting. "When does it start?" "June 1st. It's a full-time position for 8 weeks. I'll be working with real reporters on actual stories." "Well, that's wonderful, Maya," Robert said, though he sounded slightly confused. "But what about your summer job at the coffee shop? I thought you were saving money for college." Maya felt her excitement crumble. "Dad, this is paid, and it's actual experience in journalism, which is what I want to study in college." "Oh, but honey," Linda's face fell. "What about our family vacation to Napa? We've already made reservations for July. I'll have to miss it. This internship is too important to pass up." "Miss the family vacation?" Sophia looked genuinely shocked. "But we've been planning this for months. And Mom already booked that wine-tasting tour for all of us." Maya stared at her sister. "Sophia, I'm 17. I can't even drink wine." "But it's family time," Linda protested. "Surely they would understand if you explained that you had a prior commitment." "Mom, this is the Denver Post. It's a huge newspaper. I can't just ask them to reschedule a professional internship around our vacation." The silence that followed was heavy with disappointment, but not, Maya realized, disappointment in missing the family vacation. It was disappointment in her for choosing her future over their convenience. "Well," Robert said finally, "I suppose if it's that important to you, ... The phrase hung in the air like an accusation, as if Maya's career aspirations were a selfish whim rather than a serious professional opportunity. "It is important to me," Maya said quietly. "This could be life-changing." "Life-changing seems a bit dramatic," Sophia said with a small laugh. "It's just a summer internship. Just a summer internship." Maya felt something crack inside her chest. "You know what?" Maya stood up abruptly. "Forget I mentioned it." "Maya, don't be dramatic," Linda called as Maya headed for the stairs. But Maya was already gone, taking the steps 2 at a time, her acceptance letter crumpled in her fist. In her room, Maya sat on her bed and stared at the wrinkled internship letter. All afternoon, she'd imagined this moment, her parents' pride, their excitement, their recognition that their older daughter was capable of achieving something significant. Instead, she'd gotten polite indifference and mild annoyance that her Success might inconvenience their vacation plans. Her phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. How did they react? Are they freaking out with pride? Maya stared at the message for a long time before typing back. They're happy for me. It wasn't technically a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. Her parents weren't unhappy about the internship. They just didn't understand why it mattered so much to her. To them, it was a cute hobby that was getting in the way of family time. Another text from Chloe. Celebrate tomorrow? Ice cream and bragging rights? Definitely, Maya replied, grateful that at least someone understood the magnitude of what she'd accomplished. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Maya? Sophia's voice was tentative. Can I come in? Maya considered pretending to be asleep, but she unlocked the door instead. Sophia entered carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate, a peace offering that felt both genuine and calculated. I brought you this, Sophia said, setting 1 mug on Maya's nightstand. The kind with the mini marshmallows you like. Thanks. Sophia perched on the edge of Maya's desk chair, looking unusually uncertain. So, the internship thing. That's really cool. Maya looked at her sister skeptically. Is it? Of course it is. I mean, I don't really understand what journalists do exactly, but if it's what you want. Sophia trailed off, then tried again. I'm sorry if Mom and Dad seemed weird about it. I think they're just stressed about college stuff and vacation planning. It's fine, Maya said, though it wasn't. No, it's not fine. Sophia's voice was firmer now. Look, I know I get a lot of attention around here. Sometimes I think Mom and Dad forget that you have important stuff going on too. It was the most self-aware thing Maya had ever heard her sister say, and it caught her off guard. I didn't think you noticed, Maya admitted. I notice more than you think. Sophia sipped her hot chocolate thoughtfully. I know I'm not always the best sister. I get caught up in my own stuff, and I don't always think about how it affects you. Maya felt her anger softening slightly. It's not your fault, Soph. You didn't ask to be the golden child. The what now? Nothing. Just, you're good at everything. You're social and pretty and accomplished. You're everything Mom and Dad wanted in a daughter. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. That's not true. Come on, look at tonight. I told them I got a major internship, and they barely looked up from discussing your college plans. Okay, that was messed up, Sophia admitted. But Maya, they love you. They just express it differently. Do they, though? The words came out before Maya could stop them. Sometimes I feel like I'm just ... here. Like I'm the practice kid they had before they figured out how to have you. That's not... Sophia started to protest, then stopped. God, Maya, I'm sorry. I never thought about it like that. It's not your fault, Maya repeated. I just ... I wish they could see me the way they see you, even just once. Sophia set down her mug and moved to sit on the bed next to Maya. For what it's worth, I think the internship is amazing. And I think you're going to be incredible at it. Really? Really? You're smart, Maya. Smarter than me in a lot of ways. You notice things other people miss. You ask good questions. And you write better than anyone I know. Maya felt tears pricking her eyes. Thanks, Soph. And I'm going to miss you this summer. Vacation won't be the same without you there to keep me grounded. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, sipping their hot chocolate. Maya felt some of the tension from dinner beginning to ease. Maybe her parents didn't understand the significance of her achievement, but at least Sophia was trying. Tall, Maya? Sophia said quietly. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I'm spoiled? The question surprised Maya. Why would you ask that? Because sometimes I look around at everything I have, the car, the clothes, all the opportunities, and I wonder if I'm just taking it all for granted. If I'm turning into one of those entitled rich kids who thinks the world revolves around them. Maya considered the question seriously. I think you're privileged, she said finally, but I don't think you're mean or cruel about it. You don't go out of your way to make other people feel bad, but I don't go out of my way to make sure they feel good either. That's true, Sophia sighed. I want to be better. I want to be the kind of person who lifts other people up, not just someone who looks good on college applications. Then be better, Maya said simply. It's not that complicated. Will you help me? Like, call me out when I'm being oblivious? Maya smiled. I can do that. Good. Sophia stood up and headed toward the door, then turned back. And Maya? I'm going to talk to Mom and Dad about the internship. Make sure they understand how big a deal it is. You don't have to do that. Yeah, I do. That's what sisters are for, right? After Sophia left, Maya sat alone with her hot chocolate and her crumpled acceptance letter. The conversation with her sister had helped ease some of the sting from dinner, but it had also crystallized something important. Maya couldn't keep waiting for her parents to see her value. She needed to build something so undeniably impressive that even they would have to acknowledge it. The Denver Post internship was just the beginning. Maya smoothed out her acceptance letter and pinned it to her bulletin board, right next to her schedule for the upcoming semester. She had work to do. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Maya threw herself into research about the Denver Post, studying the work of staff reporters, and familiarizing herself with the newspaper's style and coverage areas. She read every journalism textbook she could get her hands with from the library and practiced different interviewing techniques with a patient. Chloe, her parents seemed to have forgotten about the internship entirely, which Maya decided was better. An active disapproval. They were busy with Sophia's spring formal preparations and her summer college tour planning, leaving Maya free to focus on her own goals without interference. The only tense moment came when Linda brought up the family vacation again, suggesting that maybe Maya could do the internship part-time so she wouldn't miss their trip to Napa. Mom, Maya said patiently, this is a professional position. I can't just work part-time because it's convenient for our vacation. But family comes first, Linda protested. This is my future, Maya replied. And right now, my future has to come first. Linda looked hurt, but Sophia unexpectedly jumped in. Mom, this internship is a really big deal, like huge. Maya's basically been chosen as one of the best young journalists in the state. Well, when you put it like that, Linda said uncertainly. Plus, Sophia continued, think about how impressive this will look on her college applications. And she'll have real journalism experience before she even starts college. Maya shot her sister a grateful look. True to her promise, Sophia had been making an effort to advocate for Maya's achievements, and it was making more difference than Maya had expected. I suppose you're right, Linda admitted. It's just hard to imagine vacation without the whole family. We'll take lots of pictures, Sophia promised, and Maya will be too busy being amazing to miss us anyway. As May moved into its final weeks, Maya felt a growing sense of excitement and nervous energy. Soon, she would be working alongside real journalists, contributing to actual news stories, building the foundation for her career. For the first time in her life, she had something that was entirely hers, an achievement that had nothing to do with being Sophia's sister or the Thompson family's forgotten daughter. She was going to be Maya Thompson, journalist, and that felt like the beginning of everything. The last day of school arrived with the usual mixture of relief and anticipation that marked the end of junior year. Maya cleaned out her locker, said goodbye to her teachers, and promised her friends she'd stay in touch over the summer, despite her busy internship schedule. As she walked out of Roosevelt High School that afternoon, Maya felt like she was leaving more than just another school year behind. She was leaving behind the version of herself who waited for recognition, who measured her worth by comparison to her sister, who accepted invisibility as her natural state. Tomorrow, her real life would begin. The Denver Post building stood like a monument to journalism in the heart of downtown Denver, its glass facade reflecting the early morning sun as Maya stood on the sidewalk, clutching her worn messenger bag and trying to calm her racing heart. It was June 1st, her first day as a real journalist, and she had never been more nervous or more excited in her life. Maya had woken up at 5 a.m., unable to sleep, and had spent 2 hours getting ready, choosing and re-choosing her outfit, practicing her introduction in the mirror, and reading through her research notes one more time. She'd settled on dark slacks, a crisp white button-down, and her only pair of professional-looking flats, an ensemble that she hoped said serious journalist rather than high school student playing dress-up. The newsroom was a revelation. Maya had expected something like the newspaper offices she'd seen in movies, all shouting in chaos and papers flying everywhere. Instead, she found a surprisingly modern space filled with the quiet hum of focused work. Reporters sat at their desks, phones pressed to their ears, or fingers flying across keyboards. The energy was intense, but controlled, purposeful, rather, than frantic. "You must be Maya Thompson," said a voice behind her. Maya turned to see a woman in her 30s with short auburn hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I'm Sarah Chun, the Metro editor. I'll be your supervisor for the summer." "Yes, that's me," Maya said, trying to project more confidence. Then she felt, "Thank you so much for this opportunity. We're excited to have you here. The competition for these internships is fierce. You must have impressed the selection committee." Sarah gestured for Maya to follow her deeper into the newsroom. "Let me show you around and introduce you to some of the team." As they walked through the newsroom, Sarah pointed out different departments: sports, business, arts and culture, investigative reporting. Each section buzzed with its own particular energy, and Maya felt like she was getting a behind-the-scenes look at how the news that shaped her city actually got made. "This will be your desk," Sarah said, stopping at a small workspace near the metro section. It wasn't much, just a computer, a phone, and a small filing cabinet, but to Maya, it felt like a throne, her own desk in a real newsroom. "Your first assignment is going to be pretty straightforward," Sarah continued, handing Maya a file folder. "We're doing a series on how local high schools are adapting their curriculum for post-pandemic learning. I want you to visit 3 schools this week, interview administrators and teachers, maybe sit in on some classes. Think you can handle that?" Maya's heart sank slightly. After all her dreams of investigative journalism and breaking news, she was being assigned what amounted to education fluff pieces. But she kept her expression neutral and nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. I'd love to start with Roosevelt High. That's my school, so I already have some contacts there." "Perfect. That's exactly the kind of initiative we like to see." Sarah smiled. "Maya, I know this might not seem like the most exciting assignment, but good journalism starts with mastering the basics. Learn to tell these smaller stories well, and bigger stories will follow." Maya spent her first morning at the Post familiarizing herself with their style guide and research databases, then made phone calls to set up interviews at the 3 schools. By lunch, she had appointments scheduled for the rest of the week and had begun drafting questions that would help her dig deeper than the typical "how are things going?" surface-level reporting she'd seen in some education coverage. During her lunch break, Maya sat in the building's small cafeteria and called Chloe to share her first morning experiences. "So you're basically a real reporter now," Chloe said, her excitement carrying clearly through the phone. "This is so cool, Maya. You're living the dream." "It's amazing," Maya agreed, though she kept her voice low so other employees couldn't overhear. "I mean, the assignment isn't exactly Pulitzer material, but I'm here. I'm actually here." "What did your parents say when you told them about your first day?" Maya hesitated. The truth was, she'd left for work that morning before her parents were awake, and they hadn't asked about her internship in days. Last night at dinner, the conversation had been entirely focused on Sophia's upcoming summer college tour and whether she should apply early decision to any schools. "They're proud," Maya said finally, which wasn't technically a lie. She was sure they would be proud if they thought about it. After lunch, Maya dove into research for her education series. She spent hours reading through academic studies about post-pandemic learning, reviewing policy changes at the state level, and looking up demographic information about the 3 schools she'd be visiting. By the time 5 o'clock arrived, she had pages of notes and a much clearer vision for how to approach her interviews. "Heading out?" Sarah asked as Maya gathered her things. "Yes, but I wanted to thank you again for today. I learned so much just observing how everyone works." "That's the best attitude to have. See you tomorrow." As Maya walked to the bus stop, she'd had to take public transportation since Sophia still had the car. She felt a sense of satisfaction she'd never experienced before. She'd spent the day doing real work, contributing to something meaningful, building skills that would serve her for years to come. For 8 hours, she hadn't been anyone's sister or daughter or background support. She'd just been Maya, journalist. The next morning, Maya arrived at Roosevelt High School with her press credentials and a renewed sense of purpose. It felt strange to walk through the familiar hallways as a reporter rather than a student, but it also felt empowering. She was here in a professional capacity with important questions to ask and a story to tell. Principal Martinez welcomed her warmly and spent an hour explaining the various ways the school had adapted to serve students who'd experienced learning disruptions during the pandemic. Maya took careful notes, asked follow-up questions, and found herself genuinely interested in the challenges facing educators. "You know, Miss Thompson," Principal Martinez said as their interview wrapped up, "I have to say I'm impressed by your questions. They're much more thoughtful than what we usually get from reporters covering education." "Thank you," Maya said, feeling a flush of pride. "I think education stories matter too much to be treated superficially." After interviewing several teachers and sitting in on a remedial math class, Maya headed to her second school. Here, she discovered a completely different approach to post-pandemic education, one that emphasized technology integration and flexible scheduling. The contrast between the two school strategies gave her story a more compelling angle than she'd initially expected. By the end of the week, Maya had visited all 3 schools, interviewed dozens of educators and administrators, and even surveyed some students about their experiences. She'd discovered genuine policy differences, innovative teaching methods, and real challenges that deserved public attention. When she sat down to write her first article for the Denver Post, Maya felt the familiar thrill of crafting a story, but amplified by the knowledge that thousands of people would read her words. She worked late into the evening, revising and polishing until every sentence felt precise and purposeful. "This is excellent work," Sarah said the next Monday morning. After reviewing Maya's draft, "You found real substance in what could have been a throwaway piece. The comparison between different schools' approaches adds depth, and you've included voices from teachers, administrators, and students. This reads like professional journalism." Maya felt like she might float away from the compliment. "Thank you. I really tried to dig deeper than the surface level. It shows. I'm going to run this as the lead story in Wednesday's Metro section." The lead story. Maya's first professional article would be featured prominently in one of Colorado's largest newspapers. She spent the rest of that day in a happy daze, barely able to concentrate on her next assignment. That evening, Maya practically bounded through the front door of her house, clutching a printed copy of her article draft. Finally, she had something that would make her parents understand the significance of her internship, something concrete and impressive they could see and touch. "Mom, Dad," she called as she entered the house. "I have amazing news." She found her parents in the kitchen, where Linda was preparing dinner while Robert reviewed some work documents at the breakfast bar. Sophia sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by college brochures and what looked like application materials. "What's got you so excited?" Linda asked, looking up from her cooking. "My first article for the Denver Post is going to be the lead story in Wednesday's Metro section," Maya announced, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "Look." She held out the printed draft, expecting her parents to drop everything and read it immediately. Instead, Linda glanced at it briefly and smiled. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm sure it's very good. Did you know that Sophia got her SAT scores back today?" Robert said, barely glancing at Maya's article. "Tell her, Soph." Sophia looked uncomfortable. "Dad, Maya's trying to share her news. 1520. Robert announced proudly. "Can you believe it? That puts her in the 99th percentile. With scores like that, she could get into anywhere: Harvard, Yale, Stanford." Maya felt her excitement deflate like a punctured balloon. She stood there holding her article while her parents discussed Sophia's scores, standardized test prep strategies, and which colleges would be most impressed by such high marks. "That's great, Sophia," Maya said quietly, and she meant it. Her sister had worked hard for those scores. "Thanks," Sophia said, shooting Maya an apologetic look. "But seriously, guys, Maya's article is a big deal too. Being featured as the lead story on her first assignment? That's incredible. Of course it is, Linda said absently, stirring something on the stove. Maya's always been a good writer. As if journalism was just a hobby, like knitting or gardening, rather than a serious career path. Actually, Maya said, trying to inject enthusiasm back into her voice, my editor said it reads like professional journalism. And this is just my first piece. I'll be writing more stories throughout the summer. That's nice, honey, Robert said, but he was already pulling up college websites on his tablet. Sophia, look at this. Harvard's early admission deadline is November 1st. We should start working on your application essays soon. Maya stood there for another moment, her unread article still in her hand, watching her parents plan Sophia's future while completely ignoring her present. Finally, she folded the paper and headed toward the stairs. Maya, wait, Sophia called after her. I want to read your article. It's fine, Maya said, not turning around. You can read it in the newspaper on Wednesday. In her room, Maya sat at her desk and stared at the article she'd been so proud of just an hour earlier. The words looked smaller somehow, less significant, as if her parents' indifference had physically diminished their importance. Her phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. How did your parents react to the lead story news? Maya stared at the message for a long time before responding, They're happy for me. Another half-truth. They weren't unhappy for her. They just couldn't see past Sophia's achievements long enough to recognize hers. A soft knock on her door interrupted her brooding. Come in, she said, expecting Sophia. Instead, Robert entered, looking slightly sheepish. Maya, I wanted to apologize. I got caught up in the excitement about Sophia's scores and didn't give your news the attention it deserved. Maya looked up at her father, surprised. It's okay. No, it's not okay. Robert sat on the edge of her bed. Can I read your article now? Maya handed him the printed draft and watched as he read it carefully, his expression growing more focused and impressed as he progressed through the piece. Maya, this is really good, he said when he finished. I mean, really professional quality. You've identified real policy issues and presented multiple perspectives clearly. Thanks, Dad. I had no idea you were capable of this level of work. I mean, I knew you were smart, but this is sophisticated analysis. Maya felt a warmth spreading through her chest. I've been working really hard to learn professional journalism standards. It shows. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Really proud. Does this mean you understand why the internship is important to me? Robert was quiet for a moment. I'm starting to. I guess I thought of it as more of a summer job than actual career preparation. But reading this, you're building real skills, aren't you? I am. And Dad, this is what I want to do with my life. Not just as a hobby or a backup plan, but as my actual career. Then I think you're going to be very good at it. After Robert left, Maya felt some of the sting from dinner begin to fade. It wasn't the enthusiastic celebration she'd imagined, but it was recognition finally that her achievements mattered. The next few weeks at the Denver Post flew by in a blur of interviews, research, and writing. Maya tackled each assignment with growing confidence, finding angles and sources that impressed her editors and earned her increasingly complex stories to cover. She wrote about a community garden project that was helping low-income families access fresh produce. She covered a city council debate about affordable housing policy. She profiled a local teacher who was using innovative methods to help immigrant students learn English. Each story taught her something new about journalism and about her city. Maya discovered that she loved the detective work of reporting, tracking down sources, verifying facts, digging deeper to find the human impact of policy decisions. She was good at getting people to open up to her, at asking the follow-up questions that revealed the real story beneath the surface. You have excellent instincts, Sarah told her after Maya turned in a particularly strong piece about local small businesses struggling with supply chain issues. You know how to find the story within the story. Thank you. I feel like I'm learning so much every day. That's the sign of a natural journalist. You're not just writing what people tell you. You're thinking critically about what it all means. Maya's confidence grew with each assignment, but so did her awareness of how little support she was getting at home. While her colleagues at the Post were interested in her work and eager to mentor her, her family remained focused on Sophia's college preparation and summer activities. The contrast became especially stark when Maya's education series won an award from the Colorado Press Association for outstanding student journalism. Sarah presented her with a certificate and mentioned the possibility of the story being picked up by other newspapers in the state. That evening, Maya shared the news at dinner, expecting that surely an actual award would get her parents' attention. "That's wonderful, Maya," Linda said warmly. "What kind of award?" "It's from the Colorado Press Association. They recognized my education series as outstanding student journalism." "Well, that's very nice," Robert said. "Sophia, did you finish your common application essay draft?" And just like that, the conversation moved on. Maya excused herself from dinner early and went for a walk around the neighborhood, trying to process her frustration. She wasn't asking for parades or parties. She just wanted her family to recognize that she was accomplishing something meaningful. As she walked past the perfectly manicured lawns and identical houses, Maya realized something important. She was tired of waiting for her family's approval. She'd been measuring her worth by their reaction, but their inability to see her value didn't diminish her actual achievements. She was good at journalism. She was building a career. She was creating her own success story, with or without their recognition. The revelation felt liberating. Over the next few weeks, Maya threw herself into her work with renewed energy, focusing on what she could control rather than what she couldn't. She started a blog where she could experiment with longer-form storytelling. She networked with other journalists at the Post, asking about their career paths and seeking advice about college journalism programs. "Have you thought about where you want to apply for college?" Sarah asked one afternoon as Maya was wrapping up an interview with a local nonprofit director. "I've been researching schools with strong journalism programs," Maya said. "Northwestern, Columbia, Syracuse, a few others. Those are excellent choices. Have you visited any of them?" Maya hesitated. "Not yet. My family is focused on other things right now." Sarah seemed to understand without Maya having to explain further. "You know, there are programs that help talented students visit colleges, even if their families can't support the travel. I could put you in touch with some resources." "Really? That would be amazing." "Consider it done. Maya, you have real talent, and you're developing professional skills that most college students don't acquire until senior year. Don't let anyone convince you that this isn't significant." The words felt like a lifeline. At the Post, Maya was valued for her abilities and her potential. Her work mattered, her ideas were taken seriously, and her achievements were recognized and celebrated. As her internship entered its final month, Maya began to see her future more clearly than ever before. She would study journalism in college, probably far from Denver, where she could build her own identity, separate from being Sophia's sister. She would work for newspapers or magazines, telling stories that mattered and making a difference through her writing. She didn't need her family's permission to be successful. She just needed to keep working hard and believing in herself. On a Friday evening in late July, Maya was working late at the Post, finishing up a story about local climate change adaptation efforts, when her phone rang. It was Sophia. "Maya, where are you? Mom made your favorite dinner, and you're not here." "I'm at work. I told everyone I'd be late tonight, but it's Friday night. Come home and hang out with us." Maya looked around the newsroom, where several other reporters were also working late, pursuing stories and meeting deadlines. This felt more like home than her actual house did. "I can't, Soph. I have a deadline. You work too hard. You're missing out on family time." "Am I?" Maya asked. "Because last Sunday, when I tried to tell everyone about the story I broke about the water treatment plant, Dad spent the entire conversation checking emails, and Mom was planning your college visit schedule." Sophia was quiet for a moment. That's fair. We haven't been very good at paying attention to your stuff, have we?" "It's okay. I'm figuring out that I don't need everyone's attention to be successful, but you're still my sister. I miss hanging out with you," Maya felt a pang of guilt. In her focus on work and her frustration with her parents, she'd been distancing herself from Sophia too, and her sister didn't deserve that. "I'll be home in a couple hours," Maya said. "Save me some dinner?" "Already done." When Maya finally made it home that night, she found Sophia waiting in the kitchen with a plate of reheated lasagna and a cup of tea. "So tell me about this water treatment plant story," Sophia said as Maya ate, "and don't leave out any details." For the next hour, Maya found herself describing her investigative process, the challenges of getting officials to talk on the record, and the satisfaction of exposing a potential public health issue. Sophia listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely impressed by the complexity of Maya's work. "You know," Sophia said when Maya finished, "I had no idea. Journalism was so complicated. I always thought reporters just wrote down what people told them." "That's what I thought too, before I started doing it professionally." "Maya, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think I'm spoiled?" Maya studied her sister's face, seeing genuine concern there. "I think you're privileged, and sometimes you don't realize how that affects other people, but I don't think you're malicious about it. I want to do better. I've been thinking about what you said before, about being the kind of person who lifts others up." "What brought this on?" Sophia sighed. "I went to lunch with some of my friends yesterday, and they were making fun of this girl from our chemistry class, you know, Ashley Rodriguez. She works at the mall, and her clothes aren't as nice as ours. And they were just mean. And I realized I've never stood up for people like that. I just sit there and let it happen. Standing up is harder than it sounds. But it's right, isn't it? And you do it. You tell stories about people who don't have voices otherwise." Maya felt a warm surge of affection for her sister. "Yeah, I try to. That's part of what I love about journalism, giving attention to people and issues that might otherwise be ignored." "That's really cool, Maya. I'm proud of you." The words meant more coming from Sophia than they would have from their parents, Maya realized, because Sophia was choosing to see her, choosing to value her work, choosing to be proud. It wasn't automatic or expected, it was genuine. "Thanks, Soph. That means a lot." As Maya headed upstairs to her room that night, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. She might not have her parents' recognition yet, but she had her sister's respect, her editor's confidence, and most importantly, her own growing certainty about who she was and what she could accomplish. The forgotten daughter was finding her voice, and it was stronger than she'd ever imagined. Maya Thompson was ready for it. 2 years had passed since Maya's internship at the Denver Post, and her senior year at Roosevelt High was turning out to be everything she'd hoped for. The girl who had once felt invisible in her own home was now the editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, had early admission to Northwestern University's prestigious journalism program, and had just been awarded a full scholarship based on her portfolio of published work. Maya stood in the school's main office on a crisp October morning, holding the scholarship letter that would change her life. The Morrison Foundation Scholarship was given to only one student per state. Each year, students who showed exceptional promise in journalism and financial need. At $200,000 over 4 years, it covered not just tuition, but room, board, and living expenses at any accredited journalism program in the country. "Congratulations, Maya," Principal Martinez said, beaming as he shook her hand. "This is the most prestigious scholarship our school has ever had a student receive. The whole district is proud of you." Maya felt a familiar surge of pride mixed with something she'd learned to recognize as her own validation. She no longer needed external approval to know her worth, but it still felt good to be recognized for her hard work. "Thank you, sir. I couldn't have done it without the support I've received here." As Maya walked through the halls toward her journalism class, she reflected on how much had changed. Since that first summer at the Post, she'd continued freelancing for the newspaper throughout her junior and senior years, covering high school, sports, local politics, and community events. Her byline was becoming known in Denver journalism circles, and several editors had already expressed interest in having her contribute to their publications during college. More importantly, Maya had learned to build her own support system. She'd found mentors at the Post teachers at school who believed in her work, and friends who valued her for who she was, rather than comparing her to Sophia. She'd stopped waiting for her family to see her and started creating a life where she was seen, appreciated, and successful. Maya, her journalism teacher, Mr. Patterson, flagged her down as she entered the classroom. I just heard about the Morrison Scholarship. This is incredible news. Thank you. I still can't quite believe it's real. Oh, it's real and well-deserved. Your investigative series on the school funding disparities was the kind of work professional journalists, twice your age, struggle to produce. Maya smiled, remembering the weeks she'd spent digging into how different schools in the district received wildly different levels of funding despite serving similar populations. The series had been picked up by the Denver Post and had actually led to policy changes at the state level. I had a good teacher, she said. You had good instincts and the work ethic to develop them. Northwestern is lucky to get you. That afternoon, Maya was in the newspaper office, working on her final editorial as editor-in-chief, when her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Mom wants the whole family to have dinner together tonight. Says she has big news to share. Maya sighed. Thompson family dinners had become increasingly strained over the past 2 years, as Maya grew more independent and less willing to fade into the background. Her parents still seemed baffled by her success, treating it as a pleasant surprise, rather than the result of years of hard work and talent. She texted back, I'll be there, but I have news to share too. What kind of news? Sophia replied immediately. The good kind. I'll tell everyone at dinner. Maya finished her editorial piece about the importance of student voice in school policy decisions and headed home, the scholarship letter safely tucked in her backpack. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe a full scholarship to Northwestern would finally make her parents understand that journalism wasn't just a hobby for Maya. It was her calling and her future. The Thompson house looked the same as always. When Maya pulled into the driveway with her used Honda Civica, car she'd bought herself with money earned from her freelance writing, the perfect suburban facade hadn't changed, but Maya's relationship to it had evolved. This was her family's house, but it had never quite felt like home. Home was the newsroom, the coffee shop where she wrote her best pieces, the library where she conducted research. Home was wherever she could be herself without apology. Inside, the familiar scene was unfolding. Linda bustled around the kitchen, preparing an elaborate meal. Robert reviewed work documents at the breakfast bar, and Sophia sat at the table surrounded by college brochures, though now they were for graduate programs rather than undergraduate schools. There's my other daughter, Robert said warmly as Maya entered. How was school today? Really good, actually. I have some exciting news to share. Wonderful. But first, let your mother tell us her news. She's been bursting with excitement all day. Linda practically glowed as she set down a casserole dish. I've been asked to chair the hospital's charity gala next year. It's such an honor they only ask their most committed volunteers. That's great, Mom, Maya said, and she meant it. Linda had been volunteering at Denver General for years, and she deserved recognition for her work. It means I'll be planning a $500,000 fundraiser, Linda continued. We'll be working with some of the city's most prominent families and businesses. It's going to be such a wonderful opportunity for networking. I'm proud of you, Robert said, kissing his wife's cheek. You've worked hard for this. Now Sophia has news too, Linda said, turning to her younger daughter. Tell Maya about Harvard. Sophia looked slightly uncomfortable, but she smiled. I got accepted into Harvard's graduate program in international relations, early admission. Maya felt a familiar pang, but it was duller now than it used to be. Sophia, that's amazing. Congratulations. Thanks. It's pretty surreal, honestly. Harvard, graduate school, Robert beamed. My daughter, the future diplomat. I can see you working at the State Department, maybe even as an ambassador someday. The conversation flowed around Sophia's achievement, the prestigious program, the famous professors she'd work with, the doors this would open for her career. Maya waited patiently for a natural break, but 20 minutes passed without one. Finally, she cleared her throat. I have some news, too. Of course, sweetheart, Linda said, though she was already beginning to clear dishes. What's your news? I received the Morrison Foundation scholarship today. The table went quiet. Maya could see from their faces that the name meant nothing to them. That's wonderful, Maya, Robert said carefully. What kind of scholarship is that? It's a full ride to any journalism program in the country. They give it to one student per state each year. A full ride? Sophia's eyes widened. Maya, that's incredible. How much money are we talking about? Robert asked, his business instincts kicking in. $200,000 over 4 years. It covers everything: tuition, room, board, living expenses. The silence that followed was different from their usual disinterest. This time, Maya could see them calculating, processing the magnitude of what she'd accomplished. 200,000? Linda repeated faintly. Maya, that's more than we make in a year. So you won't have to pay. Anything for college? Robert asked, and Maya could hear the relief in his voice alongside the surprise. Nothing. And Northwestern is one of the top journalism programs in the country. Northwestern? Sophia leaned forward. Maya, that's an incredible school. Their journalism program is legendary. For the first time in Maya's memory, she had her family's complete attention. They were looking at her, really looking at her, and seeing something other than Sophia's quiet older sister. I'm proud of you, Robert said slowly. This is a big deal, isn't it? It's the biggest scholarship in journalism education, Maya confirmed. Most recipients go on to work for major newspapers or magazines. Like the New York Times? Linda asked. Potentially, yes. Maya watched as her parents recalibrated their understanding of her future. She could almost see them realizing that their bookish daughter wasn't just pursuing a cute hobby. She was building a career that might actually be more prestigious and lucrative than they'd imagined. You know, Robert said thoughtfully, I was reading about how much influence journalists have these days, especially investigative reporters. They can shape public policy, expose corruption, ... That's exactly what I want to do, Maya said. Tell stories that matter and make a difference. And you're already doing that, Sophia added. Remember that series you wrote about school funding? That actually changed state policy. Maya shot her sister a grateful look. Over the past 2 years, Sophia had become one of Maya's biggest supporters, often serving as translator between Maya's achievements and their parents' understanding. The dinner conversation that followed was unlike any Maya had experienced in her family home. For once, the focus was on her goals, her achievements, her future plans. Robert asked about the journalism industry. Linda wanted to know about Northwestern's campus, and Sophia peppered her with questions about her writing process. I have to admit, Robert said as they finished dessert, I never really understood what you were building toward. I thought journalism was, well, less significant than it apparently is. It's okay, Dad. Most people don't understand the industry unless they're in it. But you understood it, Linda said wonderingly. You saw this path when you were 15 years old and just ... followed it. I found something I was good at and passionate about, and I worked really hard to get better at it. You did more than work hard, Sophia said. You were strategic. You got the Post internship. You built relationships with editors. You chose stories that mattered. You basically launched a professional career, while the rest of us were still figuring out what we wanted to major in. Maya felt a warmth spreading through her chest. This was what she'd been craving for years: recognition, not just of her achievements, but of the intelligence and planning that had made them possible. Maya, Robert said seriously, I owe you an apology. I've been so focused on Sophia's path that I didn't recognize you were building something equally impressive. Different paths, Maya corrected gently. Sophia's achievements are incredible too, but I should have been paying better attention to yours. It wasn't everything Maya had once dreamed of. She'd stopped needing her parents' approval to feel successful, but it felt like a healing she hadn't known she needed. Later that evening, Maya sat in her room, video chatting with Chloe, who was away at college. So they finally get it? Chloe asked after Maya filled her in on dinner. I think so. At least they understand that this isn't just a hobby anymore. Better late than never. But Maya, you know this doesn't change anything about what you've already accomplished, right? You built all of this without their support. I know, and that actually makes it more meaningful to me. Good, because girl, you are about to be legendary at Northwestern. Full scholarship, published portfolio, professional experience. You're going to show up as a freshman with credentials that seniors would kill for. Maya smiled, feeling the truth of that statement. Whatever happened with her family going forward, she'd learned to value herself independently of their recognition. The scholarship wasn't just about money, it was validation from the journalism community that she belonged, that her work mattered, that her future was bright. Chloe, can I tell you something? Always. I used to think success meant making my parents proud, but I realized that real success is building something you're proud of, regardless of who else notices. Look at you being all wise and philosophical. I learned it the hard way, but I'm glad I did. Over the next few weeks, word of Maya's scholarship spread through school and around town. The local newspaper wrote a feature about her. The school district highlighted her achievement in their newsletter, and she was invited to speak at several journalism workshops for younger students. The attention felt good, but what felt better was the knowledge that she'd earned it. Every interview, every published article, every late night spent researching and writing had contributed to this moment. Maya had learned that the most satisfying success was the kind you built yourself, brick by brick, story by story, word by word. As her senior year continued, Maya found herself looking forward rather than backward. Northwestern awaited, with its legendary professors, competitive classmates, and endless opportunities to grow as a journalist. She would leave Denver as someone who'd already made her mark, ready to make an even bigger one. The forgotten daughter had not only found her voice, she'd used it to build a future that was entirely her own. And it was just the beginning. 5 years had passed since Maya Thompson graduated from Roosevelt High School, and she was returning to Denver for the first time since starting college at Northwestern. The young woman who stepped off the plane at Denver International Airport bore little resemblance to the invisible teenager who had once struggled for recognition in her own home. Maya Thompson, now 23, was an investigative reporter for the Chicago Tribune, the youngest person ever hired for their Metro desk. Her expose on Chicago public school corruption had been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, and her byline was becoming nationally recognized. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had found her calling and excelled at it. Today, she wasn't in Denver as an award-winning journalist. She was home for Sophia's engagement party, an event that would bring the Thompson family together to celebrate the golden child's latest achievement. As Maya collected her luggage, she reflected on how much had changed. The last time she'd been home was for winter break during her freshman year. The visit had been strained her parents, still struggling to understand her career choice. Maya feeling like she was regressing into old family patterns. She'd made excuses to stay in Chicago for subsequent holidays, building her own traditions with friends and colleagues who valued her work. Now, at Sophia's insistence, she was back for a long weekend to celebrate her sister's engagement to David Sean, a fellow Harvard graduate who worked for the State Department. It would be Maya's first extended time with her family since she'd become professionally successful, and she wasn't sure what to expect. The Thompson house looked exactly the same as Maya pulled up in her rental car, the same perfect lawn, the same pristine facade, the same sense of suburban achievement. But Maya felt different approaching it. She no longer felt small or invisible as she walked up the front steps. She was returning as an accomplished professional, someone who had built her own life and reputation far from this place. Maya! Sophia practically flew out the front door before Maya could knock. At 21, Sophia had grown into the poised young woman everyone had always expected her to become. She was radiant in the way people are when everything in their lives is going according to plan. "Hey, Soph," Maya said, accepting her sister's enthusiastic hug. "You look amazing." "Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. I was worried you wouldn't be able to get away from work." "I wouldn't miss your engagement party." As they walked into the house, Maya was struck by how much smaller everything seemed. The hallway that had once felt endless now seemed narrow. The living room where she'd sat invisible during so many family gatherings now felt cramped and overly formal. "Maya," Linda appeared from the kitchen, looking older, but still immaculately put together. My successful daughter, home at last. The phrase caught Maya off guard. Successful daughter. 5 years ago, she would have been thrilled to hear those words. Now they felt strange and somewhat hollow. Hi, Mom. The house looks great. Thank you, sweetheart. Come, let me show you what we've done with your old room. We turned it into a home office for your father, but we made sure to keep some of your things. Maya followed her mother upstairs, curious to see what remained of her teenage sanctuary. The room had indeed been transformed into a masculine office space with a large desk, leather chair, and built-in bookshelves. But in one corner, Linda had created a small shrine to Maya's achievements, framed copies of her published articles, her journalism awards, her Northwestern diploma. I keep all your newspaper clippings, Linda said proudly. I show them to everyone who visits. My daughter wrote this, I tell them. I'm so proud. Maya studied the display, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Part of her was touched that her mother had saved these things, but another part of her wondered why it had taken professional recognition for her family to value her work. Thanks, Mom, that's really sweet. You know, I never understood what you were building when you were younger, but now I see it was all leading to this. You had a plan all along, didn't you? I had a dream, Maya corrected gently. The plan developed along the way. Dinner that evening was a revelation. For the first time in Maya's memory, she was treated as an equal participant rather than background support. Robert asked detailed questions about her investigative work. Linda wanted to hear about life in Chicago, and even Sophia seemed genuinely interested in Maya's career, rather than just being polite. Tell us about this Pulitzer nomination, Robert said as they finished the main course. I've been reading about it online, but I want to hear it from you. Maya found herself describing the months-long investigation that had uncovered systematic corruption in Chicago's school contracting process. She explained the painstaking process of tracking financial records, interviewing sources, and building an airtight case that had ultimately led to several arrests and policy changes. The nomination is just recognition, Maya concluded. The real victory was that kids in Chicago will have better schools because of the reporting. That's incredible, Sophia said. You're literally changing people's lives with your work. That was always the goal. I have to admit, Robert said, I used to worry about your career choice. I thought journalism was unstable, not particularly lucrative, but reading about your work, you're making a real difference. And the money isn't bad either. From what I understand, Maya smiled. It's comfortable. But more importantly, I love what I do. That's what matters most, Linda said, though Maya could hear in her voice that the financial security mattered to her parents too. The conversation continued in this vein. Throughout the evening, Maya's family finally seeing her as she was, rather than as the quiet sister of their golden child. It should have felt like a triumph, but instead, Maya felt oddly detached from their newfound pride in her. Later that night, Maya and Sophia sat on the back porch, sharing a bottle of wine and catching up properly. You seem different, Sophia observed. More ... Settled, I guess. Content. I am. I found my place in the world, and it's not here. Maya looked at her sister, surprised by the perceptive comment. No, it's not here. But that doesn't mean I don't love you guys. I know. I just ... I think I'm finally understanding what it was like for you growing up. What do you mean? Sophia was quiet for a moment, swirling her wine in her glass. David and I went to dinner with his family last weekend. He has an older brother who's a software engineer, really successful, makes a lot of money, but he's quiet and kind of introverted. And I watched how David's parents interacted with both sons, and they were so ... equal. They asked the older brother about his work with the same interest they showed in David's State Department job. That sounds nice. It made me realize how different our family dynamics were. How you were always treated as less important, I guess. Even when you were accomplishing amazing things. Maya felt a lump forming in her throat. You noticed. I noticed, but I didn't do anything about it. I just accepted it as normal because it benefited me. Sophia turned to face Maya directly. I'm sorry. I should have spoken up more. Should have made sure your achievements got the recognition they deserved. Soph, you were a kid too. It wasn't your responsibility to fix our parents' blind spots. Maybe not, but I could have been a better sister. You became a better sister. The last couple years of high school, you really supported me. Too little too late though. You'd already learned to succeed without us. Maya considered this. Maybe that was a gift, actually. Learning to validate myself instead of waiting for others to do it made me stronger. Maybe, but you shouldn't have had to learn that lesson so young. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the suburban evening sprinklers running, distant traffic, the hum of air conditioners. Can I ask you something? Sophia said eventually. Of course. Do you think less of me for taking the easy path? For being the golden child who got everything handed to her? Maya studied her sister's face in the porch light. I don't think your path was as easy as it looked from the outside. Being the favorite comes with its own pressure. It does. But I also got opportunities you didn't. The car, the college visits, the financial support, the automatic assumption that I would succeed. That's true. But Sophia, you've done well with those opportunities. Harvard Graduate School, a job you love, a relationship with someone who supports your goals. You didn't waste your advantages, but you accomplished more with less support. Different doesn't mean more or less. We both found our paths. Sophia smiled. When did you become so wise? When I stopped comparing myself to you and started focusing on my own goals. The engagement party the next evening was held at the Denver Country Club, a lavish affair with 200 guests celebrating Sophia and David's future together. Maya mingled politely, accepting congratulations on her career and fielding questions about life in Chicago. But the most telling moment came when Robert introduced Maya to his business associates. This is my daughter Maya, he said to a group of men in expensive suits. She's an investigative reporter for the Chicago Tribune, Pulitzer Prize nominated. The pride in his voice was unmistakable, and the men were appropriately impressed. Maya found herself in a 20-minute conversation about media bias, investigative techniques, and the future of journalism. These men, successful businessmen who commanded respect in Denver's elite circles, were hanging on her words, treating her expertise as valuable and noteworthy. It was everything teenage Maya had dreamed of, her father proud of her work, important people taking her seriously, recognition for her achievements. But now that it was happening, Maya realized she didn't need it anymore. The validation felt nice, but it didn't fill any empty spaces inside her, because those spaces had already been filled by her own sense of accomplishment. Your daughter is remarkable, one of the men told Robert as the conversation wound down. You must be incredibly proud. I am, Robert replied. Both my daughters have exceeded all my expectations. Later, as Maya stood on the country club's terrace, looking out over the city lights, Sophia joined her. Overwhelmed? Sophia asked. A little. It's surreal to suddenly be the accomplished daughter when I spent so many years being invisible. You were never invisible to me. I just didn't always know how to make that clear. I know, and I appreciate you saying that. Maya, can I tell you something? I used to be jealous of you. Maya turned to her sister in surprise. Jealous of me? You were the golden child. Exactly. Everything came easily to me, so I never knew if I was actually good at anything, or if people just expected me to succeed. But you fought for everything you achieved. You proved yourself over and over again. Your success is entirely your own. I never thought of it that way. I did, especially watching you tonight, talking to Dad's friends about your work. You have this confidence, this expertise that comes from really earning your place. I sometimes wonder if I have that. Sophia, you graduated from Harvard. You work for the State Department. You're marrying someone who clearly adores you. What more proof do you need that you're capable? I know, logically, but sometimes I wonder if I've just been coasting on expectations and advantages. Maya took her sister's hand. You know what? It doesn't matter how you got started. What matters is what you do going forward. And from what I can see, you're building A life you can be proud of. On her last morning in Denver, Maya had coffee with her parents before heading to the airport. The conversation was easier than it had ever been. No awkward silences. No feeling like she had to prove herself or compete for attention. "We're so proud of you," Linda said as they said goodbye. "I know we didn't always show it when you were younger, but we always loved you." "I know, Mom, and I love you too." "Will you come home more often now?" Robert asked. "It's been too long." Maya considered the question honestly. "I'll try to visit more regularly. But Dad, Chicago is my home now. That's where my life is. We understand. We just hope you know you'll always have a place here too." As Maya drove to the airport, she reflected on the weekend. Her family had finally seen her the way she'd always wanted to be seen, as accomplished, successful, worthy of pride and respect. But the recognition felt different than she'd imagined it would when she was 17 and desperate for their approval. She'd learned that the most meaningful validation came from within, from knowing she'd worked hard and made a difference in the world. Her family's pride was a nice bonus, but it wasn't necessary for her happiness or sense of self-worth. Maya Thompson had started as the forgotten daughter, the one who lived in her sister's shadow and fought for scraps of attention. But she'd become something better, a woman who didn't need anyone's permission to be extraordinary. As her plane lifted off from Denver, carrying her back to her real life in Chicago, Maya smiled. She was returning to the newsroom where her work mattered, the colleagues who respected her judgment, the story she was passionate about telling. She was going home to the life she'd built for herself, brick by brick, story by story, success by success. And it was exactly the life she'd always dreamed of. Even when no one else could see the dream, the forgotten daughter had not only found her voice, she'd used it to become unforgettable.